1 Samuel 17 tells us the account of David and Goliath. Most likely everybody who hears this knows this story in and out, but you should go back and check out this story. It's a very popular theme in Scripture, a very thing that we all know, but I challenge you to go back and check it. Read it again, have it fresh in your mind, because my real challenge is that you can convey this. Some of you don't have kids, some of you don't have grandkids, but my challenge nonetheless is to not only our own kids, but anybody we know, to relate this story of David and Goliath to some child, to impress upon one child this week the story of David and Goliath, and to watch how much they're inspired by that story, to watch how much they want to do this. I told this story to my daughter when she was about 3 years old, and what happened? All day long we played on the living room floor, and she'd go get these little stones, and I'd act like a giant and all that stuff, you know? And then the other day, by God's grace, I told this story to my son, and he's 3 years old. And what did we do? The same exact thing. I was Goliath, I was scary, and he said, and I would be so scary to him, and he said, I will fight you, because that's what David said. I'm glad that I didn't really spit on you, but I spit on the screen anyway. Because you've got to look into this account, because when you look into the Bible again and again, there's stuff you notice that you say, how did I not notice that? For instance, in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34, David said to Saul, your servant's been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. Just imagine that. And then imagine it even more. He's going after it. He struck that lion and carried the sheep from its mouth. Then it goes on. He says, when it turned on me, imagine you trying to do this and the bear or lion viciously turning on you. You know how they're tired. You know how they look. Goodness gracious. And he says, when it turned on me, little David, the shepherd boy we're talking about, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. What in the world? And I'm telling you, out of all the times I've read this story, I overlooked that verse somehow. Somehow I didn't understand. He seized that thing by its hair. I said, wow, what in the world, you know? And so he goes to fight the giant Philistine, Goliath, who's just taunting the army day and night. Bring someone out to fight me, you know? He's all, I will be your slave if anyone defeats me, you know? And nobody will go. The guys are just shaking and shaking. And David goes up. He said, who is this uncircumcised fellow? What's he doing defying God? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then he goes up, and it's this little bitty handsome boy David to this brutal beast Goliath. And he says, you know, what are you doing here? You got a dog? You want to play fetch or something like that? He said, I will give your flesh to the birds of the air this day, little boy. If you want to fight, fine. That's cool. Let's do this. And David says, you come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, who you have defied. And look at David. Goodness gracious, man. He says this, verse 46, this day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down, and I'll cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. And all those gathered will know it is not by sword or spear, but by the Lord who saves. For this battle is the Lord's, and he will give you us in his hand. And so can you really imagine David going up to this giant Goliath who's just taunting him derisively, mocking him, just throwing all kinds of stuff in this little kid's face? And he's a little kid too. And look at this unshakable faith. What's going to happen? I'm going to strike you down and cut off your head. Why? The Lord will deliver you to me this very day. We are going to cut your army up. We're going to feed you to the birds of the field because we're so tough. No, no, no. So everybody in the world remembers and knows there is a God in Israel, and this battle is his, and he's the one that did that. And you read that, you say, goodness, where did David get this indomitable faith? What in the world? Is it really from fighting bears? Is it really from lions? Is it really from sheep? I don't really think so. I think that really helped his faith progress and strengthen. But if you go back to the end of Ruth, I'll have to go there now because I'm not as keen as I'd like to be. But if you go back to Ruth, David's line comes from Boaz. And so Boaz has this son Perez, and all the way down through the line is David's father Jesse and David. The traditions were given orally at that time. So somebody really impressed the faith of David. They showed him the words of God, and David put his hope in those things. You can tell David is so confident in these things. So who was it? Was it Jesse? I don't know. But if you go back to Ruth and really look into the life of Boaz, you say, wow, where is a man faithful in every corner of his life like Boaz? You know, every single thing he did was just exuding with honor of Christ. So somebody passed that faith to him. And that's what I said. My challenge to you is to one child this week, to impress this story upon them, to show them what God can do in the strength of a young man. A very popular story, but watch how inspired that little kid will be by